we chat with each other on Teams all day, and we try to do like a huddle at the end of the night where we talk to each other, or sometimes turn our cameras on. But it's not the same as working,
No.
8 or 9 hours at an office place where you're like mingling, and it's a little stressful.
Yes, it is.
We do the best we can.
I've done a couple happy hours. Just,
But it's so awkward. They're so
yeah,
awkward though.
I know it is. It's like,
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's 5 o'clock, and I know Terry won't be joining us tonight because he's up north, or he's coming home from up north, so he doesn't get caught in the snow.
snowstorm.
Smart.
So, oh, good. And there is Sam. So, without further ado, we shall begin. Well, let me pull up my agenda. All right. Item number 1, roll call shows that Councillor Robertson, Councillor Perry, Councillor Coons, Councillor Osher, and myself, Councillor Gardner, are here. And item number 2, review of final ordinance draft language related to MDR lot size reduction and the implementation of the village residential overlay district. I'm going to assume this is our fearless town planner. Kyle, take it away.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, the ordinance language is largely the same. I had sent it to the town attorney since last time though, so this was mostly to get the final okay before a recommendation to the planning board to kind of begin the formal adoption process and having the public hearing there. The two, I think, key or main areas that we were looking at with the town attorney. Well, the first big one was the idea of the deed restriction and the language around the owner occupied kind of language. And if all that was okay, we received no comments that needed to be changed or adjusted. Roger was okay with that language. The only comment that Roger did have was we had talked about subsection 2 on that first page, the location, just specifying that it was for the medium density residential district, lots within the MDR only, and that the kind of took out that the part about it being roughly in a a number of feet around the village commercial, because the exact location of the district would be shown on the zoning map. Unlike the Main Street overlay, for instance, which kind of lists every property that can partake in the Main Street overlay. I think if we were to do that here, you'd have a really long list of properties, so that it's easier to refer to kind of the visual zoning map for that. And we have worked on a rough draft. Avi on the GIS side of things kind of did a first draft of what the zoning map would look like with the overlay. So figured I would just get your feedback on that as well while we were here to make sure it kind of looked all right. So I will try to share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see the map okay?
Yes.
All right. So, it's our normal zoning map, the yellow for the MDR, the pink for the village commercial. And then the way the symbology is the same as it was kind of shown in the comprehensive plan, when the comprehensive plan talked about adding in the village residential overlay. So it adds kind of these pinkish markings over the MDR so that you can still see the kind of yellow of the base zone with the overlay on top of it. I feel like this way is better than simply outlining Like you can see the blue outline for the Main Street overlay kind of towards the bottom half. But if we were to do that for this one and just outline, it would kind of give the appearance that the village commercial was part of the overlay as well, which I think is what we don't want to show that. This is specifically for MDR lots. I think you can actually see that there's some of those markings over the village commercial, but those will be taken out with the next version of this.
Could you zoom in a bit?
Sure. So
Thank you.
yeah, those markings over the village commercial area will not be there going forward. But in general, I think it conveys, you know, that that's the overlay, while at the same time, you know, still showing that you're in the MDR. So unless there were objections or, you know, comments or feedback, I think that's the symbology that we would go with. Yeah, so with that, I think that was pretty much it. So I guess, yeah, the next step that we're looking for is kind of a referral to the planning board, if no one has any other comments on this.
No.
I have a comment.
Sure.
I still believe that since our goal is to make a more walkable town and to have higher density closer to where the schools are, and that there's plenty of academic research to show that when you have a large lot size, that it makes it cost prohibitive to people who might be able to buy a single family home if the lot size was smaller. That I still believe that even though what I was told in the past is the reason we're taking it from 20,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet is because that's what the comprehensive plan suggested. I still believe that we would be doing the best service to our town to meet our goals of making it more walkable and making it more accessible for people with a little bit less money to be able to buy single family homes in our town. And people who own lots would be able to subdivide them if we made that square footage much smaller than 15,000 square feet. But anything smaller would be better than 15,000 square feet.
So just to make sure that things are clear, Lori, I think, so what Kyle was talking about is the overlay. It sounds like you're talking about the other piece, the MDR lot size going down from 20,000 to 15,000. Is that right? I just want to make sure we're really being clear so the public. Okay. So, and my recollections, Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong. My recollection from the last time we had the discussion was just that this isn't necessarily about what the comp plan recommends as much as that it seems like it would be an overstep to go too far away from 15,000 because the comp plan, we can certainly, that could be something that's discussed in the new comp plan for sure. But I think that my understanding from the last time we talked about this was that, you know, we are supposed to respect the work that went into the comp plan. It is the, you know, it is the document that we're working off of here, and that we, if to make a change larger than 15,000 would be so out of keeping with what the comp plan currently recommends that that would be, you know, potentially a sticky situation for council. So we're coming up to the time when we would be redoing the comp plan in the next couple of years anyway, and that's certainly something that should be on the table. But this isn't about council not wanting to lower the lot size. It's about right now, I don't think it's really not within the bounds of what we should be doing now with this current comp plan.
Right, so that's, we can agree to disagree, but the comp plan has many goals, which is making housing more affordable and making the town walkable, and trying to be, have lower income housing. And although I don't see it was written explicitly, but also giving people rights to manage their land in a way that sometimes that's their only asset. And so for all of those reasons, and so those are all listed in the comp plan, except for the one about that people would have a right to manage their own personal asset. And then there's this number 15,000. And what I'm saying is that that number 15,000 does not, we know from academic research that some of it has been done since the comp plan, that we know from academic research that that 15,000 does not actually is not equivalent to those other goals of the comp plan. So the comp plan is not internally consistent. And so I know that you're not planning to make any changes or to even take a vote on this. I'm just saying out loud that I fundamentally believe that we are not following the spirit of the comp plan when the comp plan included many goals and this 15,000 does not reach that goal.
Right, but Lori, you started off by saying agree to disagree. We're not disagreeing about the goals of the comp plan, about density. I mean, I have other thoughts about developing housing in this town, but we had a legal opinion that said we shouldn't go below 15,000, which Sophie was kind enough to remind me in the comment here. But this isn't about, you know, none of us are interested in. I mean, this is about, we had a legal opinion that the current comp plan, we couldn't go below 15,000 square feet. So when it's time to do a new comp plan, we could do new things, but
I'm not able to choose an attorney to give me input. That's what our town manager does. And I'm very pleased that she does her job well. And my job as a town councilor is to help with the other town councilors and set the vision and meet the goals of our town. And so I understand that we had a legal opinion. However, I didn't see any case law in that opinion. And I believe that that's one piece of information. So the reason I'm bringing it up again is because I still believe that it's our fundamental job to help advise our town manager how to run the town and to meet the goals that have been put out by our comprehensive plan. And I don't think 15,000 meets the goal. And that's why I say this. And
okay,
and
that's heard. Your objections noted. I think we're probably going to go with the town attorney's legal opinion. And I would also like to give folks a chance to talk about the question at hand. Tom, do you have?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to say that I'm fine going with the 15,000 this time around. And I understand the rationale for it, but I've actually become much more sympathetic to the position that Lori is presenting. And interestingly, the article since our last meeting about Bangor's reduction of lot size has made me think a lot more about it. So the next time this issue is brought up through another comprehensive plan activity, I'm going to be sympathetic, I think, to reducing it more than 15,000.
I don't think you'd be alone potentially in that, Tom.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm sorry, Kyle,
I just want to clarify one thing, is that the MDR wide, the district wide reduction from 20,000 to 15,000 square feet is one thing, but the other part of that is the overlay, and the overlay reduces the minimum lot size to 7,500 square
Right.
feet and 5,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So if you were interested in that kind of owner occupied aspect of it, that means if you had a 15,000 square foot lot, you could put a 2-family home on that lot, or you could have a 7,500 square foot lot with a single family home. So I'm not saying that going lower than that is a bad thing, or no, I'm just, the comp plan, the goal of the 15,000 square foot reduction was not the objective there was just stating that the 20,000 square foot current minimum lot size was really based off of state law around having septic on the lot, and minimum lot size is there. So reducing that to 15,000 was one thing. The idea about reducing minimum lot size specifically for walkability, to build around public transportation and things like that, was more so built around the idea of the village residential overlay. That's where the more drastic lot size change was. And I think if we want to talk about things like walkability more, that minimum lot size isn't the only factor, that there's a lot more into play when you talk about walkability than just the size of a lot. And single use zoning is a huge part of that. So you could have an MDR lot district with a minimum lot size of, a couple thousand square feet. If the only use allowed in that district was single family housing, it's still not very walkable because you can only walk to other single family homes. So there's a lot of things that go into walkability beyond just lot size. So as those conversations, we have those in the future, I think there are a number of things that we could potentially look at, minimum lot size being one of them, but other things as well.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're starting in the center of, the most business oriented and populated area of town, and kind of making a little radius where that is more drastically reducing the lot size is sort of the fix for now, right? And because the other conversation is a much larger conversation that would involve much more community input and a whole process, right?
Yeah.
Cheryl and Sam?
Well, I just have a quick question. I'm sorry. This discussion of like revisiting this again when we have another comprehensive plan. When we had not really a timeline for it, but we talked about in very general terms about how often that happens. So when would that potentially come about again, Sophie?
The comp plan, we would start it again, likely in 2024, correct, Kyle? You'd start developing and then you probably would be out to the public in 2025, 2026.
So
So
not terribly far away.
It's not terribly far away. And I think the other piece that I'm not a planner. I don't have Kyle's artistic vision that he can walk down a street and pull things that are incredible just to understand the feel of a neighborhood. But I am keyed into the infrastructure piece. And I think when we talked about the legal opinion, I also talked briefly about concerns about a blanket reduction in the MDR that would create development in places that our infrastructure simply cannot withstand. So I think the goal as you move forward and as Kyle walks us through the comp plan process in a few years is going to be to target areas that it would make sense for further reductions, and then to let Kyle work with Joe and Rob Yerxa to figure out which ones are more economically feasible for us based on the amount of infrastructure improvements that would need to be made.
Good point.
And I was going to say too that this is definitely a larger conversation, but I'm working with a group of people that want to make sure that Orono stays Orono and that we capture the essence of Orono in our lot sizes, and also that we have vegetation and trees and things like that. I mean, we're looking at we're looking at greenhouse gas emissions, we're looking at carbon absorbers. I mean, we're looking at other aspects of this, and I wasn't going to say anything until we did start having that larger conversation, and that is going to involve the updated comp plan. I think that's when we can start really bringing in all kinds of perspectives about what we need to do about bringing more families in, but at the same time capturing who we are as a town as well. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
So I take it that we're generally comfortable with moving this along to planning board. I imagine that when council circles back around to really talk about it, my sense is that kind of there'll maybe be a little bit more discussion, or at least just not hashing out, but thinking through verbally the owner occupancy and the number of unrelated people per dwelling. I think that in terms of what the community might key into when they hear about this, that those two pieces could be pretty big. So I want to make sure that we have a good hearty discussion about those before we do anything permanent. All right, Sophie.
So the idea would be to, on the 8th, call the public hearing for council for this, which would happen on March 8th. If for some reason you wanted to stall, so if you got to your committee meeting on March 1st and you weren't ready for it to go forward, we can table it at that point. But you should have feedback from the planning board before then.
Good.
All right, very good. If we are ready to move along.
Yep.
Item number 3 is a discussion about an initial contract zone request for 163 Forest Ave. And again, I assume this will be Kyle, or is there an intro by Sophie? Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if the applicants are here or not.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute. If the applicant is here, could they raise their hand?
They're not here, Sophie.
Okay, I just saw one
I did send
participant that I
them-
didn't know. Okay.
Right. Okay. They might pop
are
in. I
here.
sent them the link.
They just
They are here.
replied in the chat, the
They are.
links username.
But I can give my kind of overview in the meantime. So 163 Forest Ave is located in the low density residential district. It was previously a 2-family structure. It's across the street from the Kiwanis Club. And the applicants, Dara and Garrett, their goal is to have a counseling office in the existing structure. That would be a medical office building. From our land use side of things, medical offices are not an allowable use in the low density district. So for something like this to happen, it would require a zone change. And seeing as what they're proposing to do is fairly small scale, a contract zone makes sense, where you would change the zone to something that allowed medical offices, like economic development zone, and then kind of restrict from there what would be allowed through the contract zone. So looking at it, we always, with the contract zones, try to look at the kind of unique criteria of the lot and the project, and why a contract zone would be needed. You don't want to do a contract zone and have it result in spot zoning all over town. That sort of undermines the whole idea of zoning in the first place. So when we look at the lot in the memo, I put in some screenshots. I feel like there are really 2 key issues that make a pretty viable case for this contract zone to happen. First, this property, I believe, was for sale for over a year. During that time, we received a number of phone calls from people interested in the property. They all were looking to do sort of residential development, put several 2-family dwellings on the lot, or more of like a condo type style. It's a over 12-acre lot, so there was more than enough room if you just looked at the amount of land there to do something like that, and those are allowed uses in the LDR district. But the problem was with the kind of the natural conditions of the lot. There are a lot of wetlands, and not only are there a lot of wetland areas on the map, but they're kind of sporadically located around the map that made the idea of development pretty tricky, because if you were going to put a road through there and then structures, where would it actually go? And the only real viable place is kind of on the side closest to the interstate. So none of those conversations ever got anywhere. And I think it was safe to say that, the reason that people, weren't moving forward with that was it was just not feasible to do that sort of development. So in that regard, I think what Garrett and Dara are proposing with something like 4 therapists, who would at most be seeing one, patient at a time for a total of 8 people in the building, and utilizing the existing structure with not really any plans to add on to that principal structure. I think in that way, it actually preserves the natural conditions of that lot more than the potential residential development would. And it kind of fits in more with the low density character of that area, more so than kind of what was being talked about by some of the other people interested in that lot. The other aspect here, their surrounding uses. Yes, you're in a district that's primarily residential right now, but again, across the street, you have Kiwanis Club, which is more of an institutional type use. To the east of the lot, you have the interstate, which kind of buffers between the MDR and LDR. But on the other side of the interstate, on one side of Forest Ave, you have a church, another institutional use. Behind the lot is undeveloped, and there's a lot of wetlands and resource protection zones. So it's fairly safe to say that that wouldn't be a developed area going forward. So really the only residential use kind of abutting their property is to the west side. And due to both lots being large lots, there's a kind of substantial wooded buffer between the 2 principal structures on both of those lots. So I felt with all of that, there was sufficient reasoning for kind of pursuing a contract zone here, and it made sense for the scale of what they wanted to do. And that, it doesn't directly abut the EDZ, but, on the backside there, there is some undeveloped EDZ district, and with the surrounding uses, potentially a zone change in the future for that area to kind of make some of those uses more conforming. That it felt like it fit in with the character of that kind of corridor there. So yeah, that pretty much, I think, summarizes the things that I wanted to focus on. I imagine you want to speak to the applicants, though.
Anybody have any questions, or would you like to just, have the applicants talk a little bit about their project, or what are folks thinking?
I'd like to say quickly, full disclosure, I have been in contact. Dara and Garrett are friends of mine, and I have seen the property. And if there's any, I don't want people to think that there's any conflict or anything, but I just wanted to let you know that that I am that I have seen it, and it is very worthy of a contract zone. In my opinion, and also I read Kyle's report as well. But I did want council to know that that we are friends, and that I have been on the property and have heard their plans from the beginning. So I just wanted to say that out loud, and however you want me to proceed, I will. So thank you.
I'd like to hear from the applicants about plans and that sort of thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we got a good little summary of the plans, but I think the public might also like to hear.
Right.
Sure. Well, Dara just had her second COVID test, so she's elected me to do more of the talking today. And this is, of course, new to us, but appreciate Kyle's endorsement and Cheryl's, of course. And let's see, we've been working pretty hard on this for a long time. I guess we wanted to tell you a little about us as clinicians, as professionals. So just, and it's kind of being immodest, but we want you to know that who we are in our job, and not you know, that kind of, so Dara is from Maine. I am not. I'm from Maryland. Went to Wesleyan University, and well, you go first. You
That's
tell
okay.
us.
We both went to the UMaine School of Social Work 7 years ago. Top in our class. My undergrad is Bates College. I grew up in Maine, from northern Maine. But we kind of gravitated to one another during school of social work, and we've worked well together since then. And so we just want to say that we have also a high degree of professionalism too that we bring to the table. We've worked together both in the school of social work and professionally, and it's gone well. And so we hope to bring that to Orono as well.
So Dara went to UMaine, got a master's in public administration in 2010, and actually volunteered for the town of Orono in 2011. And she then went back where I met her to get her master's in social work. And she was a straight A student in both programs. She was the clinician of the year at Acadia in 2016. I was the outstanding student in our class, and she was right there with me, and I was won the Academic Achievement Award. And the only reason I went to Wesleyan University actually, and then here for grad school, the only reason we tell you that is so you know that we're legit and we care about this a lot. We've worked different places, some places where the priority seems to be money more than clients, and we're very client focused. So this is a dream of ours to have our own basically our own shop, and it would start out with about 4 clinicians, as Kyle said. The reason we chose 163 Forest Avenue is because we would like a sense of emotional safety, a sense of sanctuary, being on 12.5 acres. Not everyone, when they're taking this huge risk of going to counseling, wants to be right downtown where everybody drives by and sees where they are. Sometimes they want to turn down a driveway and have a sense of privacy and safety and sanctuary. So we want to offer that. We want the top-notch place. We're looking at and interviewing some other people as possibly joining us, and we want them to be the best of the best. So we're very client-focused. We would have there a group. We have 2 group rooms in the building, 4 lovely offices. We'll have a library, and we've been full blown working on this really hard. Dara's been working more on the kind of the nuts and bolts of paperwork and all of that, and I've been working more as sort of a contractor on the building. And we've gone out on a limb. We've realized all along that the town of Orono could say, sorry, no thanks, and we'd be flipping a house rather than having a counseling center. So we're aware that we've taken that risk, and so far it's been blessed all the way along. It's just been like the wind is in our sails, sort of. And of course, I guess there's so many things to say. I guess I do want to say, I think we're all aware of the importance of mental health right now in our town, in our state, in our world. And we would like to help with that. We want to be connected with therapists throughout this area in Bangor and Maine, and we already are. We have a strong connection with the university. I worked at the counseling center at the university for 3 years and handled the highest client load for all 3 of those years. We have close ties with the School of Social Work. So we want to integrate with the town. We want the town to be happy with what we do. We are not working with clients will you talk about that part about who we work with?
I just wanted to assure any neighbors or anybody else in the community that, we're not looking to do acute care or crisis care. I mean, that's what Acadia Hospital does. We're looking to meet with people who have life transition problems, general anxiety, depression, PTSD, things like that. But we're not looking to be someone that serves, crisis care. Want it to be a calm, sanctuary where people feel safe just to get some counseling. No stigma attached to that.
So some clients with a specific diagnosis, we would refer to other places that are appropriate for that. And but other than that, we want to welcome everyone to our place, regardless of age, gender, race, background. We want our own arms to be open to whomever is ready to work on their the reasons that they're in the ditch.
Do you want to mention you had worked at the counseling center for a few years too, and you know that you're aware that there's an overflow sometimes at the university where they can't handle their requests for therapy.
And which is a wonderful thing, because I remember being there and we just couldn't always handle the load, and we were looking desperately for where can we send some folks to help out. So that's exciting too. I like working with youth. My previous career was in outdoor education. So it would be lovely if at some point we could sort of connect some of the outdoors to the work that we do. But we want to start very simple. We want to be low key. We want to get along with all our neighbors, but we want to do the work. We really want to be client focused and solution focused with the work. And
just one other thing to add, that also we've had a wetlands biologist come out and assess the property. And so our other goal is to be respectful of nature and preserving of the natural environment that's there too.
We've had, I think we've probably talked enough, or at least I have, but we've overhauled we're working on the furnace. We've redone the septic system. We've redone all the electric system. We've redone the plumbing. We're going to add heat pumps. We're going to add a generator. So we're really redoing it. But the building is actually the bones. It was owned by, you guys may know, the owners owned the Orono hardware store back in the day. So the building is a lovely building. It just needed to be rescued and
I think it was
utilized.
Nora Beaton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, thanks for listening, and we invite any questions or invite you to come out and visit it at any time, walk through.
Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you for that. Counselors, questions, comments?
I'd comment, I remember clearly a request we had to consider a contract zone not too long ago, and in the same general area. And I felt pretty negative about that request, and I'm feeling much more positive about this request, and I'm trying to think through, why am I feeling better about this one? And I guess I'm thinking it's a smaller scale. They're using an existing building. It seems to be a better fit to the neighborhood in general. So I guess those are reasons that make me feel much more positive about this particular request. And I would say also, Kyle, you did a really nice job of presenting it in the written material that we got in advance, and allowed me certainly to think about it and to think how I might feel about it. And I appreciate that. That's it for me.
I think, Councilor Perry, the other reason that you might be feeling more positive is that this particular parcel, when you think of highest and best use, I think what Kyle has demonstrated, at least to me, is that this is a highest and best use, and that by allowing a medical office and then limiting it down to what their vision is, I think will really protect the feel of that corridor.
That was my main concern as well. I agree, Tom, I agree. I had similar thoughts about, thinking about what came back a few months ago for proposal. And I was wondering kind of a similar question. But again, I think, and one of the things with any contract zone change always makes me nervous because it's kind of forever. And so, I mean, obviously we would, dial it back and get exactly where we need to prevent, like, if let's say in 5 or 10 years, things go awry rather, and this ceased to exist, and also we have this contract zone where all of a sudden we got the dreaded Starbucks, or whatever, that's the word, that's the trigger word for the town of Orono, is Starbucks. But it's I think I just want to make sure we don't do that. I think it's fantastic what you're proposing here. I think also, the work you do right now is incredibly important as well. I mean, it was important 10 years ago too, but oh my God, especially now. So if there was a win, that could come in on that property, I think this is it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I what everyone said, I guess I would add just to what you said, is that what we were looking for was a place close enough but far enough. So we wanted to be close, that we're accessible to the town, to whomever, but we're out a little bit, and this place has 12.5 acres with woods all around it. So it's really a nice setting for what we're doing, rather than being kind of more urban. So it fits really well. And then just having the Kiwanis and the church, it's more, it worked. It looks really good for what we're doing. So I'm glad you understand.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Tom and Sam's comments as well. I think that the more recent contract zone we were looking at in that area was a relatively high volume endeavor that would require a lot more parking spaces, and it would substantially kind of change the character of that particular neighborhood. But then we've had other recent examples, like for example, the disc golf course, where we're looking at a piece of property and saying, well, what are the other things that could happen on this property? And Orono is a tricky place to find homes for businesses, but that is one of our extremely important directives, is to find homes for businesses. And I think when we can get creative with a parcel that may not have other options, then it's a great opportunity for us. And everything that you've presented about your idea, it sounds lovely, and it sounds like it would fit in with the character of the neighborhood. Same thing as Sam said, a contract zone is forever. We want to be very careful about limiting the scale, just in case you moved locations at some point, so that we could make sure that nothing of a larger scale went in there. But yes, I think that this sounds like the sort of thing a contract zone is made for.
Thank you so much. I guess I would add this, that we hope it's long-term, as long as it's helping this community. If one of us or both of us left the profession, which we probably will someday, another clinician could be there. And if it's complementary to this area, hopefully it would go on, and we don't need to hold on to it.
So just in terms of process, Councilor Gardner, this is an initial meeting to give feedback, and it sounds like council is generally very supportive of this project. So the next step would be that the applicants would work with the town planner to craft and submit a formal application along with the fees associated with that. Once that application comes in, the town planner would get more feedback from the committee around specifics, because a contract actually gets drafted and then reviewed by legal. When you see that contract, when you are supportive of it, you would forward that on to the planning board. The planning board would hold a public hearing and receive feedback from the community, and also make recommendations to the council. Council would review those recommendations, hold its own public hearing, and hopefully by that point, all of the bugs are worked out, and it would then be approved by the town council and recorded at the Registry of Deeds as a permanent contract. Contracts can be amended in the future if something changed. It just has to go through a process similar to this for that to happen, and both parties have to agree. So you've already touched on it, but I just want to make sure it's out there in the public. I have had the opportunity to sit on the fringes and listen to Dara and Garrett talk about this project, and they are truly impressive individuals. But when council considers this, you need to be thinking about use and impact. I think they've met the hurdle of making you think this is a really great idea. Now we have to get to a point where you can agree. We have an individual who's raised their hand. Do you wish to?
Well, this almost never happens, so why not? Sure, let's hear from folks.
All right, I'm going to ask Dawn Lamb to unmute. Eh. Muted, and I can't unmute. So the only way around this would be to promote to panelists, and we generally do not promote people. Oh, will the contract include agriculture? Is the
So
question.
For us,
I don't know, yeah, if they're referring to what the applicant wants to do or what the contract outside of that, a project, the other types of uses that would still be allowed on the property. I guess that's two different questions, really. There can be other land uses still allowed within the contract aside from just what the applicant wishes to do. So if you're saying that the base underlying zone is changed to the economic development zone, which allows medical office buildings, there are a lot of land uses allowed in the economic development zone. Some of them, some of those you might keep as being allowed, and some of them you might restrict. I guess they are within guidelines to produce vegetables. Yeah,
Perhaps. I think it depends on where you guys get with the curtailment of the EDZ or whatever underlying zone you end up selecting. Right. Yeah. So I think that's in process.
All right. Well, thank you for that lengthy discussion of the next steps. So Sophie, it wasn't quite as catchy as how a bill becomes a law on Schoolhouse Rock, but it was very informative for the public. And it does highlight an important point, which is that folks who want to undergo the process of trying to apply for a contract zone with the town, it is a lengthy and expensive process, and they, they really have to be committed to their idea, and so I think it's good for the public to have a scope of the amount of work that goes into a contract zone. They aren't decided willy-nilly. All right, so if we are ready to move on, and thank you to our guests for joining us tonight. If we're ready to move on to item 4, formalizing internal and council process for considering contract zone requests. Sophie?
That is me. I'm going to bring our fearless economic development director up to be a panelist with us, if I may. He is recovering from pretty extensive surgery, so please pick on him at will. Here he comes. So I don't often get requests or suggestions from the town planner. We have a town planner who tends to just really enjoy his job and working with people and can take just about anything in stride. And so when he came to me and expressed some concern with the number of contract zone requests coming in and the lack of a formal process to deal with them, because it's always been a contract zone comes in, he meets with people, he spends some time with them, he then that everybody gets to come to committee. And you saw the report that he created and the amount of time that went into that coming to committee. And so right now, anybody who wants a contract zone gets a pre-meet with the council committee. And some of the things that we're seeing requests for contract zones for are things that are, we just know you're not going to allow. You're not going to allow marijuana establishment in the village or just adjacent to the village district. You've gone through that. We know that that is not something that you're interested in. So I just went through the current process in not catchy, but in pretty good detail. I am going to suggest that we think about adopting a different process, and by we, I mean you. I think it would be kind of interesting if once somebody goes and has the initial conversation, whether it be with code enforcement or the town planner, about a use that's determined not to be an allowed use, at that point, if somebody thinks it really is an allowed use, they can go to the appeals board if they're denied a building permit or a use permit. So if everybody agrees it's not an allowed use, I think you could consider having a standard pre-application that the developer or the property owner would fill out that says, this is what we're doing. This is why we want to do it. This is kind of the impact that we think it will have on our neighbors. I think that application then goes to the town planner and is reviewed for consistency with the comp plan, impact to the neighborhood, and the unique character of the property or other circumstance that limits the use of the property for other allowed activities, right? Because there's got to be something compelling about a property that allows it to be ripe for a contract zone. I think at that point, when the planner reviews it, if they could decide to send it to council for consideration. And I would suggest that they all go to the comp plan committee for consideration. If the planner denies it, I would suggest that we have a pre-denial review. So before anything goes back to the applicant, the material would actually be, and the decision of the planner would be reviewed by the council chair, the comp plan committee chair, and the town manager. So essentially, you get a political set of eyes on a technical decision. If everybody agrees that it's a good denial, then the applicant would receive a letter of denial detailing why it was denied and how they can appeal it to the town council. If not everybody is in agreement, then the application would be referred to the comp plan for review. So if it comes to that committee, that subcommittee of 3, and one of them says, wait a minute, I think this is not a good denial, or we need more information, it would just go to comp plan at that point. The applicant would be able to submit a formal written appeal to the town council. My thought is that that written appeal could be a review of the documentation at first. So you all would get like a background packet with, this is the application, here's the denial, here's the notes from the pre-denial meeting, and decide. If a majority decide that you really want to hear the appeal, you would hear it. And if a majority says, no, we're not going to agree to this, you would not hear it.
Yeah.
Sophie, I don't mean
yeah.
to interrupt. Can I ask you a question? I think with in this particular case, they bought the property and then went to the zone. So if somebody was thinking about purchasing a property, but it wasn't zoned appropriately, would they go through this process while the property's on the market, I guess?
I think they could. I think they could. I think the point of this, Cheryl, is not to limit who can ask for a contract zone or a conditional zone or a zone change, but rather to formalize the process so the planner gets an application, responds to the application. There's an appeal process, so it can't linger for a long time. And
Right.
if the planner says no, then this person, there's something that we can hang our hats on. So the same person isn't coming back 6 times for a project that we know will not get approval. So the,
And that was, yeah,
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. That was what I was thinking, was that I know with Dara and Garrett, they asked first, but bought the property anyway. And just said, we're just going to take our chances that this is going to happen. So I didn't know. And I think there was some fear that if they hadn't made that decision, they would have lost the property to
So
another.
yeah, I think that there's going to be an amount of time that it will take to reasonably review an application, but I also think if there is a standard process that's detailed in writing, with the avenues for appeal detailed in writing, that it will move this through in a more efficient way for Kyle. And Kyle and I have talked about this. I don't know if he wants to give input, and I actually gave him permission to contradict me on camera if he so chooses tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd just say that it's already taking a long time, even without this. So if someone was in that situation where they're looking to buy a property and they want to change the zone to do what they want to do, instead of just submitting the application and letting me review it and doing, what Sophie's talking about, it's a more open-ended discussion right now where I'm trying to find out all of the details of what they want to do and weigh all of those things. Will the council, does this make sense? Is there a better use? All those kind of unique characteristics, the surrounding area, what the comp plan says. I'm trying to envision what the discussion will be as it gets into more of the specifics, because sometimes the specifics are what makes it a yes or a no as far as making sense, but they're just asking on a base level, very, kind of bird's eye view type questions. And it makes it really difficult to get things done in a orderly, timely fashion sometimes. So I think it's already taking a fairly long time to have these conversations. So I don't think something like this would add any more length to the time, certainly.
I think there's always going to be an inherent risk to this sort of thing. It'd be great if we could say, we definitely do this, but if you're going to buy something in hopes that something works out, we're not on the hook if it doesn't work out, if they buy, so there's always going to be that element of risk. I think this is going to hopefully streamline it some and make it a little easier to, call some of the less than likelies out. But I think, there's no way to guarantee that. And I certainly don't want to see the town on the hook for somebody bought something with the intention or thought that it would go through and it doesn't go through. That's, buyer beware. You got to take these risks, I guess.
So I was skeptical when I first read this in the background materials for today. I'm curious, but skeptical, because it sounded like there was my concern was that potentially professional staff are acting as gatekeepers in the process, or and you did say you've gone through that. Council's not interested. You've already said, well, council constantly turns over, so maybe someday some council will be interested in doing X, Y, and Z. But the way that you've described this process, I feel very confident in it, particularly because of that, small committee of council chair and committee chair being political eyes on it, because I think that's really important to the process, the democratic process, that the residents of this town and the people who want to start businesses here, that they have direct access to us. And and to be able to have that input from members of council ahead of time still streamline the process and make it more efficient. Because I do feel bad for Kyle. Sometimes it's like he has to do a lot of work, and he does a really good job at this. And then sometimes it's like something that's never going to fly anyway. And so I think that this could be a really great way of streamlining that process.
I want to give credit to Dave Mylan and Kyle, because they both had a lot of influence in my ideas. They helped look at the various options. So
Other
what
thoughts? Anyone else before we?
Good.
So my suggestion is if we could work to bring a standard application tool, understanding that staff might morph it from time to time, but a general tool that I could work with Kyle and Dave to create, with a cover letter to applicants when they take it that explains. I think it's also important for applicants to explain that a contract zone is not a given, that the predisposition is to go with the underlying zoning district, and kind of talk about a little bit of what we'd be looking for. But if I could draft those, if you like the general outline, then we'll get a policy and the documents together and bring them back for review.
Good. Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
I want to thank Kyle and the entire staff for the input on this. And one thing I heard you saying, Kyle, was that if our goal is to have a walkable community, and of course on that side of 95, that's probably not where we're talking about a walkable community, but you did mention that when we have a single use zoning, that we're precluding that people would have a place to go when they walked that was other than just residential. So already you pointed out that there are non-residential things happening very close by. And I'm wondering if there's a way in which we can gather the data of the times that you've been requested for contract zones. So maybe as part of this process, also putting it on a grand list of what kind of requests you get, and some kind of database spreadsheet that says, this is the original zone, this is what they wanted to use it for, this is the decision we made, so that when we get to this comp plan process, we can talk about the big picture asks we've been getting over the period from one comp plan process to the next, about what people are querying, and also with that decision that this 3-member, our town manager and the head of the comp plan committee and the chair of the council, what their decisions were, because I think that you who work for us have institutional memory, and those who come to our planning process have the experience of living in the town, the goals of what they want for the town. But by collecting the data in that way, it would be something that you can deliver to the people who are doing the planning. So when they're evaluating what our zones are, what can be done and not be done in a particular zone, because that would collect the historic record of what our town people were hoping to do.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah, I think
we can do that.
Yeah, it's easy enough to, I mean, at the very least, have a spreadsheet of the various requests we get, with parcel and, proposed use and things like that. I think things like that would be useful as we got into the next comp plan discussion, and, thinking of, just like the last comp plan had various overlay ideas and zone change ideas, that would be useful data to have.
This is government. There's a record of everything forever. No one throws anything away. All right, so we're ready to move on. Our last item is a brief town manager's update. Sophie?
Well, I hope to be brief today. First, I want to just let people know that both ice rinks are open. So we've got the one up by the school that's open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. That is set up for hockey and whatever people want to get into, reasonably get into. There's a pop-up ice rink at the former Camden National Bank right across from the town office. That is a smaller rink designed for no hockey, so no contact. It is enjoy some figure skating. We think it would be great for families, maybe for even younger kids if you wanted a smaller environment. Want to really thank Dr. Tozier for renting us that space. He's been wonderful to work with, clearly has a deep desire to give back to the community. And we're excited. Public Works and the fire department and facilities all got together with Parks and Rec to make that happen. So we're hoping we'll be able to keep that up and going. I don't know if the lights are up yet, but there will be some lights up there.
But a quick
So-
question, Sophie, about
Yeah.
that before we move on to the next thing. Yeah, I was going to ask about the light. Someone asked about masks on this. Are we going to have? I know we can't police this at all, but are we going to have any sort of signage recommending masks or saying, remember, you got to wear masks? Or
Well, I think it's not recommending because it's a public space. So under state law right now, you're required to wear a mask. My sense is that Mitch Stone is really good about making sure he is my mask signage person. So I'm going to guess that he will put it up. If it's not there, we'll get it up, Sam.
great, thank you.
Second thing, I think I've alluded a couple of times to council with this idea of the rolling staff shortages. COVID and COVID quarantine seems to be kind of rolling through various departments. The latest hit was WPCF. We ended up with 2/3 of our staff testing positive for COVID. So it is a real concern. Joe and his team have been doing, a great job getting everything ready. Rob Yerxa has and his team have stepped in. We have a Public Works individual who was in that shared position several years ago, who has stepped up and is carrying the pager and doing the daily checks and making sure that, when you flush, it goes somewhere and that we're not polluting the river when that happens. So just really impressed with my team. They decided to work together and are meeting a need. So we have this major storm on the way, and I have done my part. I've had a pre-emergency operations committee meeting, and I've made plans with my department heads, which tells me that we are going to get the minimum amount of snow as possible, because the more I prepare, the less we seem to get. However, even with all that preparation, I decided normally we wait until the storm gets here and then make a decision about whether or not it's safe to have people come in to work. The COVID-19 has given us the ability to be a little bit more flexible. So I made the decision this morning to ask department heads to work with their staff if they are not emergency responders or in the emergency services like WPCF to come to work with their staff to work remotely tomorrow. So you will not see the town office staffed. You will not see the library staffed. However, our non-emergency responder will be at home answering messages, emails, and in general, trying to facilitate work. We think this is a good use and allows us to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. So we're kind of excited about that. So this week, we have this meeting, and then we have a tree board meeting on Wednesday, and we have a candidates night forum on Thursday. So pretty busy week. And then next Monday is our routine council meeting.
I
That's
would
all
just
I
like
have.
to add to your update, speaking of the snow, and I don't know, I'm sure thousands of people are going to be watching this on Facebook, but I just want to make a plea to the public. Please be patient and sympathetic and kind about Public Works doing snow removal if we do get hit hard tomorrow. Safety is the first priority. So it's not like there's going to be slacking or anything in that department and making sure that those roads are safe for travel. But we've got, you know, between COVID and some operational issues with the budget, just to remind folks, like, you know, they are doing the best job that they can with limited resources, more limited than usual for various reasons this winter. And I'm sure they will do an incredible job, but please, you know, if you decide you want to walk to town and you step out of your house and the sidewalk doesn't look the way you want it to, just hang in there. You know, they are doing the best that they can.
I was gonna suggest saying something like that, but you did it better than I could.
Good comment.
All right. Well, it looks like the only thing left on our agenda is to adjourn. Oh, Tom, don't look so excited. So I guess, I don't know, we've recently just been sort of adjourning without a vote or anything because it's a committee. And that sounds great to me. So I guess I declare this meeting over.
Stay
Good to see
safe,
you all.
everyone. Safe travel.
Bye.
Bye.
Get out in tomorrow.